Welcome to Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies. We bring you real-life examples from global and local thought leaders, as well as experts working within the financial industry, and seek out the best stories from the front lines of financial services innovation, where dreams of industry pioneers meet reality. Hosted by Paul Krogdahl and Ville Sontu. This is Fintech Daydreaming.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Daydreaming. It is at the time of the month again when we're talking about the Nordic Fintech highlights, and that means I'm joined here as usual by Paul and Janne. So let's start with you, Paul. How are you today?
I'm good, Ville. I'm good as always. Just getting over a bit of a cold spell. Had a flu, cold, not quite sure what. Man flu, I think is what we generally call it, right? So I've had man flu. I've been lying on the sofa complaining bitterly whilst the rest of the family walk around saying, but there's nothing wrong with you. So I've had a period of that, but I feel better now and I have recovered. So I'm fantastically good. And I'm actually really enjoying the weather we're having at the moment. It's feeling like spring. The birds are singing, the snow is melting. It's very early, but I'm waiting for a traditional Finnish second winter. So I'm sure once we are almost putting on our shorts, the cold spell will come back, the snow will hit us as a blizzard, and we'll all start complaining again.
Indeed. And you sound so much better than you did on Monday this week when we had a quick call. We were supposed to record this a bit earlier actually in the week, but your voice was gone. So again, you at least sound much better. Hopefully your brain is working as well a little bit better than on Monday.
You're expecting an awful lot now. Expecting my brain to be working on a general level is asking too much, but periodically I tune it up just to be able to have a sensible discussion with you fellas.
Indeed. Well, Janne, how is your brain? Are you enjoying the early spring we're enjoying here as well?
Yeah, very much. Looking forward to have a picnic tomorrow. And it's good to do it now because you never know when the winter comes back, like Paul said.
Exactly. Everybody knows the meme from Finland that there's this small bird saying, "Yay, it's spring," and then nope. So there's the blizzard coming. My personal guess is that we're going to have another full-on winter, right, like mid-April probably. But let's see how it goes and enjoy the days that we do get of sunshine. But good, the usual weather talk out of the way. Let's get started with the fintech topics that we have. We're going to cover for today's episode, and let's get started with you, Janne. So, what is the overall atmosphere in the fintech space here in the Nordics in February, and what have we learned?
General vibes are good, and if we look at the funding section again. There were plenty of smaller early stage rounds in the financial software space. So it seems that there's still demand and work to do in terms of AI and automation in the accounting industry, which actually makes a lot of sense. If you think Finland, which is a small market, we still have 500,000 companies in Finland, which are mainly very small companies. So if you can build a solution that helps SMEs to save time and money, and you can get them to pay you, even 10 euros per month, so you can already create quite a good business out of it. So never underestimate that field and how annoying and expensive accounting is. Otherwise, there were quite a few M&A activities. So some Nordic fintechs were acquired by foreign players, especially from Denmark. AltaPay was acquired by French MarketPay. GoGift was acquired by Waterland Private Equity, and StoreBuddy was acquired by another Danish fintech company, Ageras. And then on the banking side, quite a lot of news. OP and DNB from Norway announced that they are partnering or extending their partnership with WorldPay. Then we had Nordnet, which had some security issues also in February, but they also announced that they're partnering with Broadridge. And then Alisa Bank is expanding their banking as a service strategy now together with Administer. So generally, it's actually quite interesting to see how the focus kind of shifts. So last month we were talking a lot about cryptos, blockchain investments going there, but now it was clearly more on the accounting side. So we can see that all the areas of the industry are alive. It goes a little bit maybe in like periods where the focus goes, but a good month in general.
Yeah, the February is famously the shortest month of the year, but it seems like we were able to pack a lot of activity in that space. A lot of stuff that also reached the headlines of the newspapers here in the Nordics, mainly related to the security issues we heard. Again, Nordnet's problems were widely publicized, and I myself, full disclosure, a Nordnet customer, did have to check into my account that did any Swedes or Danes or Norwegian people sell any of my assets, but luckily no. So nobody was able. Nobody luckily logged into my account, at least at Nordnet.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I logged into my account and I was hopeful that someone had sold my Kamuk stocks, but no, they were still there.
Or indeed maybe bought some stocks for you. but okay. Well, at least we should be happy that our accounts remained untouched.
Yeah.
Paul, how was? Did you have any incidents with Nordnet?
No, I did not. I don't actually think I'm a customer, not that I'm aware of anyway, unless maybe I am through some embedded finance capability somewhere. So not an issue for me at all. But I am actually quite excited by the sort of general trends that have been happening in February and going forwards. I think it's always positive when we're seeing growth. I think this focus on accounting is really interesting. I think as most banks are recognizing, the SME market space is underserved. I think there is a fantastic opportunity for banks to become almost the chief financial officer for these small individuals and small companies to help them in their financial growth and going forwards. And accounting obviously is an important part of that, be that either accounting software or accounting principles, policies, whatever the case may be. So I think, a lot of growth in this space. I still think an awful lot there to come. So I'm excited by that. I'm hoping to see more, actually.
Yeah, I think it's famously underserved segment, the SME segment, as we've talked many times in this podcast, and it's been a long time coming. Maybe we're gonna see some concrete activity in this space sooner than later. At least it's becoming crowded in terms of people and companies offering services in that space. Very good, but as usual, let's deep dive into a couple of the news headlines that we picked individually to talk about. But before we do that, we of course have to do the service to our listeners and do our infamous joke part of the podcast. So, Janne, I guess the honor goes to you today. So, do you have a joke for us?
Yes, unfortunately, again, yes.
Okay, shoot.
So, why don't dinosaurs use Apple Pay?
Because they're no longer alive?
Yeah, I don't know.
They're extinct.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my God, where are we going with these jokes? I'm lost of words. So, but anyway, we got through that.
Yeah.
It's
Finally,
a tradition now. We have to stick with it, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, we have to. I guess there's a joke about sticking with it as well. But let's move along before we get too stuck on this rabbit hole. Good. Yeah, how to pivot from this. But anyway, so let's get back on track on the news headlines, on the actual fintech topics that we wanted to talk about. I'm still distracted about that joke, but anyway, let's try to move forward and start with you, Paul. Which news headline did you pick for us today?
Start with me, Paul. Yes, awful lot of interesting news as always. But there was one that caught my attention. I am probably irritating most people in my continued focus on embedded finance and the growth of platformification in the Nordics. And I know I've been harping on about this for a very long time, and it's moving slowly, but we're really starting to see traction now. I think SEB Embedded, SEBX, they started the train, and we stood there and watched and said, this is interesting, things are happening. end of last year, beginning of this year, Alisa Bank. I've brought this up multiple times. A lot of interesting news around Alisa Bank starting to embed capabilities, their growth of embedded finance. They even have a core of their released new strategy is around embedded finance. And then the latest one sort of jump onto this bandwagon, which now gives us even more scope in the Nordics, is Lunar, right? So Lunar, this was announced earlier. Lunar created a banking as a service spin-off that they've called Moonrise, which then creates another embedded finance banking as a service offering that sits in Denmark now. So we've now got SEB embedded in Sweden. We've got Alisa Bank here in Finland. We've got Lunar Bank in Denmark. We're starting to see some fundamental growth there. I really think we're getting to the point where it is time for the traditional banks to potentially sit up and say, okay, things are happening here. But the one that came into the news now for February, which I thought was really interesting, is Lunar Bank really are putting their money where their mouth is, I suppose you could say, right? Because they have brought in now Nana Bergman into the mix to help to lead their Moonrise spin-off, which is their banking as a service. Now, they are starting initially to focus on the Danish market. They are being very specific around, the offerings that they want to focus on. But I would not be surprised if Lunar don't see this as a big play and will take this further, because there is already a crowded market for this in Denmark with a number of players, whereas I think the growth for banking as a service in the wider Nordic field is strong. So I think Nana Bergman, interesting person to bring in. She's got a fairly strong profile that I think is perfect for this. So I think this is exciting news. I am finally, I think, starting to see some visibility of my continued notion that the future of banking will be dominated by platforms. I really do see that embedded finance is growing now. And I think this year is going to be where we see this pivot in the Nordics. My personal view. So I'm really excited by this focus by Lunar into their Moonrise.
Yeah, I agreed. So again, just a few thoughts from my side. So first of all, Moonrise offering things like virtual accounts and real-time payments across the Nordics through a single API sounds good. We've seen many attempts to do pan-Nordic payments, for instance, instantly in the recent past, and that doing this as a single entity, as Lunar Bank, and then providing that through an API in an embedded offering, of course, is interesting. Virtual accounts has been a growth area for a very long time, especially in the corporate space, obviously, and we've seen a lot of growth there, and even to the extent that some of the regulators are starting to have more scrutiny towards financial service providers offering virtual accounts due to the somewhat unclear definitions of responsibilities and KYC related things on the virtual accounts. Of course, more clarity brings more certainty, brings less risk, and hopefully we will see this space as well continuing to grow in the future. I'm personally a big fan of virtual accounts, as some people working with me might know. So again, happy to see that this is becoming a part of an embedded offering as well. Second thing I noticed in the FinExtra news that is linked in the newsletter, about Nana, they said that she evacuated from the Bank of London, and I was stopped and I started to wonder, what does that mean? What does it mean to evacuate from a bank? But maybe that's a side note. Good. Janne, any thoughts on Lunar's new banking as a service spin-off?
Yeah, very interesting, and I could totally agree with Paul. I've been on the train also, and it's been exciting to follow what, for instance, Alisa has been doing and SEB embedded, and now Lunar clearly taking big steps. And a month ago when I was at the Stockholm Fintech Week, there was for instance Ville with their embedded embedded finance department there, promoting their services to new financial industry players. And then also I met some other challenger banks who had clearly some BaaS things cooking under the hood. So it's definitely something that is happening right now, and the smaller, newer, more innovative banks are providing that. And I would really like to actually go and talk to the CEOs of the big banks and ask like, hey, where is your embedded finance strategy or banking as a service strategy? Do you have something like that?
Yeah, it somehow feels that we're entering a new phase in the embedded finance and banking as a service model, because the first phase was, of course, when it was less supervised and less regulated and less defined space. We saw a lot of fintechs with no licenses entering this space. We've seen a lot of those in Europe and especially in the US. Now, that of course caused obvious problems in the space, and we've seen some collapses, especially in the US when it comes to banking as a service providers, and a certain deterioration of trust in that space. Now we're seeing licensed banks going into this space more aggressively, this being one example of that. So again, it's interesting to see this space maturing as this becomes a more people get more experience doing this, and customers get used to buying these services as a service.
There's actually another element to it, though, exactly like you said, Janne, around strategy. I think most of the questions that I throw at the incumbent banks predominantly is the fact, like you said, what's your strategy? You don't necessarily have to have all the answers, but you should at least have a strategy that says, how am I going to engage in this continued growth of embedded finance? It might not be we are going to lead in embedded finance, but if all you're doing is standing on the side looking at what's happening without any clarity on what direction you're going to go in, you're going to hit a point where it's too late, right?
I think many of especially the incumbent banks that have already invested a lot in PSD2 and upcoming PSD3 and PSR implementations and their APIs, to a large extent, they actually believe that they've already got this covered with those investments. Now, that's fine, as we have discussed many times, Paul, you and me, but at least be aware of it. So again, if that is your choice of your strategy for embedded finance, then have purpose with that strategy and be able to articulate that. The tendency many times with incumbent banks is that there is no embedded finance.
No, it's strategy by accident rather than strategy by choice, right? And,
yeah, exactly.
And that's never a good approach.
Yeah, so what you've done is that you've complied to PSD2, and then you're saying we got embedded finance covered and it doesn't really exist. Then you don't have a strategy. You're just a driftwood, basically, in that case. Good. All right. Anything else we wanted to cover from this part of the Lunar news?
Nothing else from me.
All right. Good. Well, that means that we will move on to Janne. I believe you also picked some news from Lunar Bank, but from a different angle.
Yeah, this is actually like in the previous news, Lunar is the provider, so now it's actually the opposite way. So Lunar is partnering with Froda, and they're extending their lending collaboration to Sweden. So basically, Froda is a Swedish SME lending fintech, and Lunar, of course, a Swedish leading Nordic neobank, Danish. But the drill is here that Lunar has a lot of business customers, and now they can get through Lunar's customer channels the loans from Froda. So neobanks like Lunar, they have been very good at the digital experience, the apps, and they have a big customer base. But then they have been again lacking some of the very basic services like lending, which is pretty relevant part of financial services. And in this case, it's sorted out so that they're embedding the financing from Froda to their customers. And then again, like a couple of episodes ago, we're talking about Lunar collaborating to provide mortgages through a partner. So they're clearly on the path that they are expanding their offering through partnerships. But then on the other side, they're also providing their platform and technology to other customers. So Lunar is really working in multiple directions to grow bigger, and I really like it.
Yeah, agreed. I think this is funnily, these things connect all the time, right? So we've been speaking about Lunar a couple of times before, and now we have two pieces of news about Lunar. It somehow feels like maybe they even have a strategy here in the background. What do you think, Paul?
But I'm wondering a little bit whose balance sheet the loans are sitting on, whether it's Lunar's or their partners, a little bit like the mortgaging. Irrespectively, though, very, very relevant, very good. Again, showing strength of Lunar to look at new markets and new opportunities. Again, doing it with partners rather than trying to do everything in-house, which is a model we're seeing from neobanks. Again, differently from the incumbent banks that try and do everything in-house. If we can't do it, we're not going to do it at all, rather than the neobanks saying, well, a partner ecosystem is a lot better than trying to do it all ourselves. What I am intrigued about, I mean, if we go back and look at the early days of Revolut did an awful lot with partners, but sometimes they diluted the fact that it was being done by partners, which I found a little bit disconcerting. I remember they did the early stock trading, and they maybe potentially still do for their retail stock trading. That was not done by Revolut, and they didn't point out that it was done by a partner, which has impact on things like insurance and if things go wrong and who do you take contact with. So I'm wondering if Luna in their expansion is being more transparent on this. I think that would be good. That might end up being a regulatory discussion as well in the future. But all in all, lending for SME space, always high risk, very interesting. So again, an area that banks traditionally have stayed away from. Smart move, really interesting. It fits in with everything else. Lunar is providing embedded finance out, and they're taking advantage of embedded finance in. So interesting stuff.
Indeed, indeed. And it is interesting to see these different phases of these neobanks from a regional perspective, because obviously we all know and have been discussed many times before that Revolut has a very strong footprint even in the Nordic countries, but they are not providing any lending services. No house loan, no mortgages, no SME lending, nothing. And that is probably due to the fact that well, first of all, they are spread thin across the globe, as we know, Revolut being a massive player in the market, and Nordic might not be their first focus, but that only underlines the fact that the ones who are local players or regional players are like Lunar here in the Nordics. They are probably more comfortable offering these lending services as well, since they have the capability to do that. Now, in this case, through a partnership, of course, but ultimately it is your brand, your customer service that you're putting to the stake when you're doing this. And also in the eyes of the supervisors, this partnership is also not completely disconnected from each other when it comes to liabilities and who is responsible for what. The interesting part, of course, really in this is that what is the journey of these partnerships? You mentioned Revolut again, Paul, in terms of how they started offering services. But as they have acquired banking licenses in different places and have been enhancing their presence in different countries, they have been kind of insourcing a lot of those functions. So they might be starting off with a partner visible to customers in different shapes and forms. But ultimately, as they get the capabilities to actually do that and have the ability to run those specific businesses in different regions, they do tend to insource them. So is it kind of the inevitable destiny of all these neobanks that they start off with partnerships and then they will end up doing everything by themselves, just like the incumbent banks are doing? What do you think, Paul?
I think it's easy to start with partners. Absolutely, and I can understand it's a faster route to market, faster return on investment, and to a certain degree lower risk as you start off. But then generally anything that you partner on becomes a pass-through revenue, and everybody is looking for growth. So at some point in time, you are going to look at how can I insource this so I can get a lion's share of the revenue and profit rather than passing it out to my ecosystem of partners. At the same time, though, there is value in focusing on what is your unique differentiator and what is it that you are best at, rather than, again, trying to do everything for everyone. So I think there is a good point in starting with a large ecosystem of partners and then pulling your chains in as you grow and you get better control of your market.
Yeah, agreed. Janne, do you think it's inevitable that we will only have a couple of banks in the future with providing everything by themselves, or are we going to continue to see these partnerships?
That's very interesting because there's been the thesis that, hey, in the future, you can basically build a bank by, just taking ready components, buying some BaaS here, cards there, loans there, investment solutions, and then you can focus on building the experience, the packaging, the pricing. Of course, it's not that simple. You still have to knock your head against the wall with all the tech stuff. But that's very interesting to see companies who are building that. Will they eventually notice that, okay, it's a better business model if we start to do more stuff by ourselves? Or are they making a lot of profit because they don't have the burden of running everything themselves? But I think that's something that the new innovative banks are currently wondering and building their strategy about.
At least it's quite easy to see that the partnerships are more, let's call it, convenient and maybe longer lasting due to the fact that integration is much more smooth these days. If you remember that only like 10-15 years ago, if you did a third party or partner integration as a bank, that probably meant that you broke the user experience or the UX flow quite badly, and in worst cases you had like multiple logins and things like this. Now all of this obviously has been smoothed away with technical solutions and basically better more flexible technology. So that will kind of make sure that these partnerships are more convenient for users and they are indeed more embedded into these journeys. So it all comes around to embedding everything together. So let's get on to the last piece of news, which of course goes into my part of this recording, and the one that I picked was that Klarna is partnering with a German car subscription service, Finn, and their Klarna is offering flexible payment options for these car subscriptions. So just briefly, car subscriptions, of course, as a concept is not new. We've had car leasing services forever, but the car subscription services, they want to break this traditional leasing model where you have a very long contract. You actually can do like monthly or annual contracts and call it like a car subscription that you pay on a monthly basis. There's many ways you can do that. You can optimize the business, and of course that's great for all of us who want to maybe have a new car more often than we do these days without tying up capital all the time. So what is Klarna then bringing to the picture? They are bringing up a service that they call flexible invoicing, and that means that effectively Finn is outsourcing the invoicing and payment functions of these car subscriptions to Klarna, and Klarna is able to collect these then with monthly invoices. The couple of things there, of course, because the question is that, well, isn't that just a regular invoice? What's the big deal? Well, first of all, this is off-balance sheet credit for Finn. So again, Klarna is taking the payment kind of due date time element of this liquidity. So they are ones who are collecting the payments. So that's a headache off of Finn's shoulders. And Klarna is able to connect that to the broader Klarna ecosystem. So again, that flexible invoice means that you will probably have a lot of services on the Klarna invoice, and you're able to fund those purchases in different ways. So you could even have like a buy now, pay later arrangement for your car payments. Not that it sounds like really feasible in terms of your economics, but again, you could technically do that. So Klarna sees this as a way to becoming a more basically a bigger part of your attention in your day-to-day economy management by having this flexible invoice. And Finn and your car is a good place to add to that ecosystem, I would say. Again, interesting play, multiple payment options, connecting different things into the very interesting world of car subscriptions and leasing, which is of course ripe for disruption. I know we're running out of time, so quick comments on that. Janne, what do you think?
Makes a lot of sense. So if the idea of car subscriptions is to make things easy, so then of course the payment and invoicing part of the entire solution should be easy. So yeah, thumbs up.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole notion of mobility as a service is an interesting area, and I think we're going to see continued growth in that. I looked through the news article. One of the things that I was trying to understand closer is who owns the asset, who owns the car. Is it Klarna? Is it the consumer, or who is it? Because that generally becomes a discussion point when things start going wrong, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's a different issue. But mobility as a service, love it.
Yeah, indeed. We did have an episode with another German fintech called Links4 earlier, some time ago. And we had a long discussion about this on whose balance sheet this actually sits in. And this is a great question. Typically, there is different kind of financing arrangements behind those. And I would believe, and I don't know, is that this is formed like a rental company, I would say. But again, looking forward to seeing this. And by the way, if you do name your company Finn, you should be present in Finland, which they're not. So again, that's feedback to Finn people. Please get to Finland. I would like to get a car with a subscription myself as well. And that's a nice and compact ending to this recording. It was a bit rushed, but again, we're running out of time and we need to respect our own schedules. Janne and Paul, any final thoughts before we close the episode?
From me, no, just another interesting journey of fintechs for February month. And no, I think that's it.
All right, Janne?
Yeah, remember to join the Nordic Fintech Summit on May 15th. We'll have truly like an 360-degree view on the Nordic Fintech. We'll also be celebrating 10 years of Nordic Fintech collaboration. And we also just announced our latest speaker edition. So he's the CEO of Santander Open Bank, the truly big global bank. A man called Petri, you may know him. He's a very interesting guy. So that's one reason enough to join us in Helsinki in May.
Yes, indeed. And I do believe, Paul, that we are both going to be there as well. And the infamous karaoke has my name on it. So we're gonna hopefully see that, or maybe unfortunately see that as well. Good.
Yes,
but
that is my
May.
plan.
Yeah, so that's in May, so still a few months to go. But again, it's good to start preparing early. It is a big festival here in Finland for Nordic Fintech, as we know.
Yes.
Very good. But that wraps up today's episode. Thanks again. It was fantastic talking with you guys. As always, the world of fintech news here in the Nordics never seems to stop, and I always enjoy these conversations, especially now that the sun is shining and we're recording this on a Friday, which is of course fantastic. And with that being said, all the usual stuff follows, which is that like, subscribe, 5-star reviews, please, leave a review, tell your friends, give a recommendation, give a shout out. We were always happy to hear different comments in all the social media platforms where we're present. And every interaction is a positive interaction. Looking forward to hearing from everybody. With that being said, have a great rest of the week. And this has been Fintech Daydreaming.
This is Fintech Daydreaming.